Hi there, I'm DeeDee Doke with Recruiter Magazine and Recruiter.co.uk, and I'm with Gemma Cooney, Sales Director of Jobsite White. Very exciting product. Tell us all about it.
Okay, there's quite a lot to tell, so I'll have to do a condensed version. We've been live for about 5 months now, so we're still a baby of Jobsite, our holding company. Jobsite White basically came about because we, as a company, have launched many job boards and helped people to build job boards over the years. Quite big exercises, building sites for the NHS and big newspaper groups. But there was definitely a need out there for smaller organisations to run their own job boards, but without the actual aggro and fuss of doing it all themselves and cost, they wanted someone else to help them. And in comes the shining knight that is Jobsite White. So it's a white label plug-in solution essentially that enables organisations such as trade associations or trade publications to run and manage their own job board. Right through from selling jobs to their community and managing in life as well. But it's built to be light touch, so it's very easy to implement, but it's easy to run in life as well. They don't have to have a salesperson working on it, it's all e-commerce. So if they want to literally just plug it in and run it as a supplementary service to their offering, they can do so, and they can be up and running in about a week.
I'm going to sound like a real techie novice here. How does this work?
Yeah, it's well, to be honest, you, DeeDee, are probably the type of audience that we're talking to. I mean, a lot of the people we're speaking to, they're not the IT directors of firms. They are the business owners and the people who run the business. And they ask similar questions. And they don't want this to be a costly exercise where they have to get their developers, their designers, and change their complete site. So basically what we give people is a snippet of HTML code that they literally just do a bit of configuration with. So we tell them the colours they want it to be, it all matches the look and feel of their site. They configure feed of jobs coming in, but it's literally just copy and pasting a bit of code that we supply to them and putting it on their site. It really is that simple. And there's 2 bits of code we give to our partners. They plug it in. One of them has all candidate functionality, so candidates can come on and search for jobs, apply for jobs. All of the functionality that you see behind the scenes of Jobsite, we refactor and give to our partners. And on the same vein, we give them all the client functionality as well. So that's from viewing a product catalogue to buying jobs to posting jobs to managing applications. So from 2 little bits of code, they get all of that.
Now, you say that this has been running about 5 months now. What kind of lessons have you learned to date that you've put into the product going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So we launched Jobsite White in a very sort of lean startup manner. And we did launch with a minimum viable product, so sort of very of the moment. But when we do that, we also realised that we had to evolve it in quite an agile fashion as well. So what we didn't want to do is over-engineer something that we didn't quite know what people wanted. Our target market is vast, and therefore their needs are as well. So what some people class as a key function they need, others might not. So we've really had to balance what people want. We're very lucky. We have a great developer who's working really closely with the commercial side of the business. So we act on feedback as and when we get it. We're in a very nice position that when we get feedback in, we really can turn it around in a matter of days. And something someone wanted on their site or within their functionality, they can have. And the benefit of the white label is that if one partner benefits from it, everyone does. So when we build for one, we build for all. So it really is sort of for the greater good. So we've evolved the product a lot in the last 5 months, actually. We've done a lot with RSS feeds, XML feeds, and changing slight things within the offering. But yeah, it was all driven by partner feedback, not by us. It's by what the partners want to make their job boards work.
If you could sum up in one phrase what the companies or other kinds of organizations that would buy this product are wanting at the moment, what is their number one priority?
It's a quick and easy job board. I mean, that literally is it, rather than having something they've got to think about and go to their boards and talk about with a high cost associated to it. there is no fee to implement Jobsite White, and the business model purely works on a wholesale retail basis. So they make money when we sell jobs to them, they sell them onto their audience. So they don't want hidden costs, they just want something that's easy to run, both from a management point of view, but from a candidate and client point of view as well. As I mentioned, they want to plug this in and almost not worry about it.
What about the candidate experience on Jobsite White?
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us an idea of what candidates might experience with different users of this? Will there be any difference? Will there be any unique experience aspect built in depending on who the client is?
You know, I suppose this is why one of the key benefits of Jobsite White is the first word of our title, as it were, which is Jobsite. So we wouldn't dream of going out and rebuilding the candidate or client experience when Jobsite have done it already. So we've literally just taken what our company do and do very, very well, and we know from feedback, you know, that's why candidates keep coming back, that's why clients keep coming back. So we've given that functionality to our partners to allow them to have a simple candidate experience, an easy to use one. So from a candidate point of view, absolutely what the experience they'd get on Jobsite is the experience they'd get on any other partner site, just maybe with a different colour button.
Okay. Now going back to the business model, you mentioned that there's no fee for this service.
No. So one of the main barriers to entry, I think, of many offerings and sort of, I suppose, the competitive marketplace is that for trade associations and publications and blogs and everyone else out there who potentially wants a job board, is it's a bit unknown. They don't know how many jobs they're going to sell. So asking those companies for an upfront fee of tens of thousands of pounds is enough to put people off. So we thought, is there a way we can build something where there is a minimum, that barrier's gone, and then people really only then commit on a sort of subscription basis, which is the way the sort of world's going, the way you subscribe to a mobile phone. You know, that's the way Jobsite White is. So we're asking partners to come on board and commit with us for a contract period of 12 months, that they commit to a volume of jobs that they sell, as opposed to a hefty upfront sort of hosting fee, and we don't charge for product evolutions. So those different changes I've mentioned we've made in the last 5 months, there's no cost to the partners for that. We just evolve it and they benefit from it.
So they get the jobs from Jobsite, basically, no matter how niche they are, and it's not up to them to go out and sell jobs.
Good point. There's sort of two sides to the coin. As well as us giving them the functionality, the other key benefit to Jobsite White is we actually give them a feed of Jobsite jobs from day one. So many reasons why job boards fail is because they just don't have the content, and these niche publishers really struggle to find it in the early days. Clients won't buy if there's no one there, and candidates won't come back. So we give them a feed of jobs that is relevant to them, so they can configure that to their industry sector or keywords or locations. And so those jobs filter in, but also on the flip of that, all of the jobs that they sell, because we give them the ability to sell jobs onto their client base, also appear on Jobsite in our network. So the yield that they can actually charge for those jobs is a lot higher than they probably ever envisaged they could, because their offering's much wider than it ever was. It's no longer just their niche, it's Jobsite and our wider network as well. So we really are giving them the ability to make some significant revenues if they put the effort in.
Jobsite has jobs for just about every kind of sector in the world. Do you find that people who want to get into niches, very, very tiny niches, are among the largest group of people taking the uptake on Jobsite White?
It's a mixture, actually. I think that was one of the things that we tried to forward forecast before we went live, is that what type of partners would be coming on here. And of our target market so far, we've really had a broad spectrum of people coming on. So we have had very niche areas. So one of the associations we've got on board is the Institute of Administrative Management. So a very small area. However, on another vein, we have another site called Yorkshire Jobs, only wanting jobs from Yorkshire. So there really is no rhyme or reason as to what area we're getting. Another great partner we've had on board is a company from, within our own home, as it were, A&N Media, which is part of the Daily Mail Group, which encompasses brands such as our own brand, Even Based, but also Metro, Evening Standard, huge brands in there. And to date, they didn't ever have a job board for the entire group. So if I worked at Metro and I wanted to look for other opportunities, there wasn't anything. So we've plugged in Jobsite White, and now we have a job board for the entire group. So that's like a big scale partner, right down to the smaller scale, very niche areas. So yeah, no clear pattern yet.
Now, obviously, people go to job sites to find jobs, but with regard to other content, what are the opportunities there for other kinds of traffic attracting content on the sites? Do you provide it? Do they provide it? How does that work?
Well, what we actually offer is sort of very unobtrusive. So we offer almost a window. It's a widget or an iframe. So we almost have just a box on their site. Everything around it is down to them. And this is one of the key drivers behind White. People didn't want us to come in to an established brand and rebuild it. So a lot of these publications, a lot of these publishers have been around for years, and they've built a lot of brand affiliation, and what they didn't want us to do was come in and plonk a page in the middle of it that didn't look anything like it. So to be honest, outside of what we do is completely in their control, which is from feedback what they wanted.
One final question. What's the next step for Jobsite White?
The way we've evolved White, as I mentioned, is very agile, which means we've released our first version, but release 2 and 3 are absolutely coming very soon. We have different things we're looking at. We're looking at a CV product as one of those elements, but also the sort of world is our oyster. We're UK based at the moment, but there is an international expansion plan for White as well.
Stay tuned. Gemma Cooney, thank you so much for your time today. I'm DeeDee Doke. We're at True London. Hi there. This is our third session from True London today. We're here at the City Hotel, Aldgate East, and we are going to be talking about flexible working in this session. I'm DeeDee Doke, editor of Recruiter Magazine and Recruiter.co.uk, excuse me there. Now we're going to start off with introductions over here to my left. We have Ben Farber, who is the Senior Policy Advisor with the Recruitment and Employment Confederation. Right here to my right, well, who doesn't know Bill Borman, the organizer and founder of True London and True Global and wherever else you are at the moment. And over here to my far right, we've got Rory Jeffcock, who is the director for EMEA of RPO and MSP, that's under Adecco Solutions. So we're going to be talking about flexible working and a lot of different ramifications thereof. Now, we're going to start with you, Ben. I understand that the REC has recently come out with a major report on flexible working issues. Can you give us some top-line information about that report?
Sure. Just as a bit of a background to set the scene, we formed something called the Flexible Work Commission at the beginning of the year. We brought together a number of employers, recruiters, large and small. We got some people from Westminster think tanks, Whitehall think tanks, and a couple of academics from business schools to look at issues around flexible working, try and assess the benefit to business, to the economy, and really lay out the business case for expanding flexible working, because we did soon agree that it was a generally positive thing for employers. I think the primary finding, we identified first and foremost two strands of flexibility. The first relates more to direct employment, so we labelled it employment flexibility, and that's comprising things like flexi-time, remote working, your traditional family-friendly working practices. But just as important, a second strand, a broader work flexibility encompassing the kind of contractual arrangements that we're seeing growth of, so the use of contractors, self-employed, freelancers and temporary agency workers. One of the key points actually was we recognise an increasing divergence between those two strands. So more and more employers are using a mixture of these solutions alongside each other, temps alongside direct employees, but all having the same kind of flexible working conditions, flexible hours and so on and so forth. The net result, and really the bottom line, is flexibility. We spoke to many employers all around the country across a broad range of sectors. Flexibility is a positive thing. It's great for business competitiveness. It was a key driver, behind keeping unemployment low. Historically low compared to historical recessions. Unemployment was not nearly as high as it has been previously, and we really think that the increased use of flexibility.
Reported unemployment.
Well, based on ONS figures, yeah, sure. Reported unemployment.
How do we get the report?
The report's on our website, front and centre actually, rec.uk.com. We have distributed it far and wide, but yeah, it's free to download for members and non-members alike. So,
Well, Bill, you've been doing some work in the flexible working arena lately.
Yeah.
Can you summarize for us what it is you've been working on and what you found?
Well, I guess the main one of the areas I've been looking at quite closely is actually how work overall is changing. So this has been talking to some fairly large corporate employers globally, plus some RPO providers, and looking at the fact that I have a view that I needed to confirm. Not surprisingly, I have a view on everything.
Bill, what's that view?
Yeah, what's that view? And I have a view that actually the job is not going to exist. Probably within about 18 months to 2 years, the job won't exist. I think, but I'd consider flexible working people being on 1 year rolling contracts and stuff like that. But so there's no such thing as job for life. I think more and more people are going to be like me, be unemployable by an organisation, but employable and at a premium for a very short period of time. So what we're going to have is really a skills-based economy when, and this is also tied into technology moving quicker than work. So to bring people in to say it's a project. I think this changes the recruiter's life a lot, because recruiters will become project managers essentially and run skills clusters. And I think that's the way work is. I think that's the way work's going to go. Lots of other things around it are going to change, like the location of it and how we do it. But I would say, in my opinion, that and on the research I'm seeing is that we'll be at the point where that overtakes people without jobs. Will overtake people with traditional jobs. Will overtake them within about 18 months.
Yeah,
18 months.
18 months.
Okay, Rory?
We're at the business end of that, so we're a good barometer at Adecco in understanding the shift between permanent employment and temporary. When I say temporary, I'm meaning contractors, limited company contractors, as well as PAYE. So we've seen a major shift in how employers are still delivering the product, whatever they do, consulting, building widgets, whatever they do. We've seen a major shift between the risks of hiring permanent staff and moving. They still need to do what they need to do, but they do it through hiring temporary staff. And the skills of hiring temporary staff are very different from, well, no, the way that you attract temporary staff actually is very similar to the way you'd attract permanent staff. It's just how you payroll them and all the risks that are associated. So I definitely agree with Bill. There's been a shift, and I don't see it going back to perm.
No,
I
actually something I think which is really important in this. There was a conference in Australia. My friend Trevor Vass, I think you might know Trevor Vass, and Kevin Wheeler ran a conference in Australia, and it was picketed by the unions in Australia, from the point of view that they were saying we don't want. It's exploitive, you're taking away real jobs, too many people unemployed. But I think we've got to look at it, and quite often when we take that mindset in terms of jobs not existing, we look at it purely from the employer's point of view. And even, when we talk about reports and things, we always talk about flexible working, it's great for the economy, it's great for companies and everything else. I think we also have to look at it and say, actually, people really don't want a job. They really don't want. They want to go and work. So if you look at people leaving university now, the thought of working in the same place for their life is terrifying.
That's a very key point. We spoke to lots of small firms, actually. People, accountancy firms, great example.
Yeah.
We spoke to an accountancy firm up in Manchester, and they're saying exactly that. They cannot get the best graduates now unless they offer some kind of flexible arrangement. It is that fear of a 9-to-5 job in the same office.
Why would I want to work somewhere for the rest of my life?
That is, so it's, businesses are recognising it as a real competitive advantage. Yeah. And I think what you're also mentioning about the projectisation of work, that's another key message. And I think it's a response a little bit to the recession. Businesses found themselves encumbered with a large fixed workforce, serious direct costs that they could not, cut particularly quickly. And lots of businesses fell off the edge as a result of that. The few that did survive were those that managed to move very quickly to much more flexible arrangements with flexibility in associated costs. And I think we're now seeing businesses take that lesson, really learn from it, and continue post-recession and into growth.
I'd like to pose two questions there. You say this could happen within 18 months.
I think.
Will? Okay.
I never do could.
Will. How will employers disengage themselves, if you will, from all the permanent workers that they have on their books right now to go to this kind of project model? Or do you think that employees who are employees now, could stay employees for a while?
They're kind of already doing that. They're already doing that, but by not replacing jobs in the way that they have. So, we're always going to have a natural amount of churn. And as people are going, they're going. So there's some forced churn where people are saying, actually, we're just going to shift you out or move you away. There's people requesting it, saying, actually, I want to do something. Because the other things that I think are going to change, one of the significant changes is we're going to get to the point where we stop giving people hours and we give them work contract. The more that people are working from home, we're going to see big shifts in.
So more results orientated as opposed to presenteeism.
Yeah, a lot of the organisations that I look at now, and some of them I've been in, which is looking more from a culture point of view, and you don't get a 35-hour contract, you don't get a 40-hour contract. You do this work, and they say if you do that typically programmers and technology industry at the moment, if you want to work for 24 hours a day and you want to do that for 7 days and then you want to disappear for 7, doesn't matter because this is your work.
Well, we've seen a growth in service work orders, which is then exactly down to that. It's not pay and rations you're paying for, it's the delivery of a result. And the internet and broadband is allowing for that experience to for people to work from home and be more flexible.
Technology's better in the house than it is in the office. In most
Well,
cases.
it's much better for us.
It's better in their pocket. It's better in their pocket than it is.
We
in the
we
office.
Well,
route-
I wouldn't
route-
go that far.
We route through France on our service, so I work at home more because of that. But an interesting example of what we do for some of our customers is we run managed service programs, and we've seen a move towards what we call a hybrid model, where RPO, commonly known permanent outsourcing, MSP, managed service for contracting contingent staff. We've actually seen that it's actually better to have both under one roof, because a hiring manager will now go to one port of call. And this isn't a sales effort, I'm just showing you where the market's going, is that hiring manager will have pressure on his FTE. So when he has that individual that resigns, he will definitely, or she will definitely be thinking, do I replace with a perm or do I replace with a contingent? So we sit there in the middle, we say, these are the best sort of contingent staff you can get, these are the best sort of perm staff you can get, and they're often falling on the contingent through the lack of risk.
The other question I was going to ask, and thank you for the nice build-up into that, if there are many more people out there on the, looking for work, competing for work in this project-orientated world, aren't they going to need agents of some kind, to...
I don't believe so. I'm sure I've got colleagues, and Bill have his own opinion on this, but I think that to attract a contingent staff member, be it PAYE or contractor, and in the UK we've got a huge contractor base, limited company contractors. It's the exact same as you hire a perm guy. So you've got to have your LinkedIn up to date. You've got to be on the right channels to be attracted. And a lot of big companies, we've heard Unilever talk today, they'll attract their contingent staff using the ATS that they've got through just a different
skill swarms. Skill
Yeah.
swarms. So what you're doing, what we're finding, is more and more people are they group together. So if we all, and I'll give you an example of this. Okay, so I am one of these independent workers, if you like, and there's 5 or 6 people here who are independent workers who work in the same kind of social media recruiting space. And when we get a project, I'll work with Jonathan Campbell, I'll work with Andy Headworth, I'll work with different people on sections of that work. We don't have any formal agreement, we don't have a contract, we don't have a company, but we swarm together because we'll go, right, okay, these are the people I know, I've worked with them before, I can trust them with a piece of work. So one of us will get that piece of work and say, actually, we're going to divide it up, and that's without formal agreement. So what you're going to, and that's one example. And so what you're getting is more organisations saying, we need somebody to come and do this. We don't mind paying a premium because we want expert knowledge, but we don't want to. We can't keep that premium on a payroll because we don't need it. Once they've come in and done the job, we don't need it for the 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever it is. So they'll pay a premium for that period of time. So what you're getting is, as people work on contracts, it's going to be much. I don't think culture is going to be important, actually. Although I think culture branding is going to be important, how the place is to work. I think what we're going to get is which is slightly different. I think what we're going to get into is points where the attraction is the work itself, and it will be word of mouth or word of mouse. It'll be technology led. Everyone who does the SAP, all the SAP programmers all hang together with other SAP programmers. A piece of work comes up and they go, right, 10 of us, let's go.
I think we're doing
I
it.
want to retweet that.
Please.
Word of
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
I hope you all
nice.
got that. Word of mouth.
Word of
I like
mouth,
that. I've
yeah.
never heard that one. Thank you very much, Bill.
I think there is a key point though. We are talking, and we'll have to this point, we're talking about quite high skilled sectors. And no matter how much, we might want it to be the case, if you're making a car on a production line, you have to be there. And you have to be there long enough to learn how to use the machinery, how to run the line. So I
disagree.
You
I
do you think we
disagree.
can make cars from home?
No, location.
Yeah.
No location. But
I think
you don't need to be an employee.
I was
You don't need
about
be an
to
employee.
follow up on this point, because we have seen some big manufacturers that have shifted the model. They are using contingent labour for a year or two. I think it's more in reaction to an increasingly competitive global marketplace with global market forces are at play. You don't want to take on 2,500 employees to build a new car if you don't think the sales of that car are going to be sustained. But I picked that number because that's exactly the number that Jaguar Land Rover have just taken from temp to perm, because they started with their Evoque, which has been wildly popular, brought in a load of temps, that demand has now sustained itself for 2 years, so they feel they can take that risk to take them on permanently and retain those skills within the company and develop them further. So I think there will still be some employment, and certainly in those sectors where you need a large-scale workforce, we might see a bit more.
But do you think those even people going along, and I mean, to be fair, the majority of factories, distribution units and everything else for a long time, manufacturing units have been run by temporary staff. You know, that was the first sector to go on any scale. Managed service on sites, master vendor stuff, and even people like the telecoms, the old BT, the emergency services, the people answering the phones. I really see everything but essential services in one form or another will be temporary, contract or self-employed.
Bill, thanks for summing up your point of view on this. We've only got a couple more minutes. Rory?
Future for me with contingent labour is not just the traditional model. Exactly, Bill was talking about in the very old phrase, but sort of the blue-collar environment. Contingent labour is here to stay in the white-collar market.
Ben?
I think I agree with both of that. I mean, for us, the key point is not about defining flexible work so much as redefining work as flexible. I think there's a real role for recruiters, the recruitment industry, to challenge employer assumptions and candidate assumptions actually about what work looks like and what works best for business. So
That sounds like a great point to take forward at a future date. Thank you very much for being with us, and thanks to my guests, Ben Farber, Bill Borman, Rory Jeffcock. I'm DeeDee Doke. We'll see you next session.
Thanks everybody. Thanks Jobsite.
This afternoon, I've got with me here on the couch, to my left, Charu Malhotra, who is the Global Resourcing Project Manager for Unilever. To my immediate right, Alistair Cartwright, who is the Managing Director of Ingenium People, a training company for in-house recruiters. And to my far right, Mitch Sullivan, a recruiter, agency, in-house, you name it,
Yeah,
he does
I've
it.
done all that stuff.
We are going to be talking this afternoon about sort of the state of play of relationships between in-house recruiters, agency recruiters, what in-house recruiters are looking at for their training needs at the moment, and all sorts of issues around the agency and in-house dynamic. I'm going to start with you, Charu. As an in-house recruiter, how do you view the situation currently between agency recruiters and in-house operations?
Sure. So in terms of my current role, I actually don't do any recruitment, I just do projects. But when I look at how we partner with agencies, and I have done recruitment in the past, both in-house and via an RPO and an agency, the relationship dynamics have changed dramatically. And I would really see that the strong agencies are the ones that are evolving and changing how they work with us and partner with us. I do think there's probably a longer timeline to go, because I think in some companies, not necessarily ours, the agency is seen as must stay over there, it's the dark side, and in-house is sort of nirvana. And I genuinely believe that you can't actually have a strong recruitment organisation without actually knowing how to prioritise your needs, and that may mean you use a channel like LinkedIn, or you partner with a search firm, or use an agency. So I think it's an interesting dynamic. It's certainly changed over the last 10 years, but I don't believe in the philosophy that, agency bad, in-house good.
On the other hand, though, don't a lot of in-house departments see the situation as just that? In-house good, direct sourcing good, agency bad?
That can depend on the kinds of people that make up that in-house team. So if there's a lot of ex-agency recruiters that make up that in-house team, in my experience, it may not always be the case, but I've found there tends to be a bit more resentment, almost in the same way that doctors make the worst patients.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. There's a number of reasons. Maybe they ex-agency recruiters know how they used to work and don't want that for themselves, but are too frightened to admit it. So it gets translated into some kind of antipathy towards third-party recruiters.
I think the change has come about that now, through the recession there's obviously been a huge motivation to reduce costs, and obviously the obvious one is to reduce agency costs. But in-house teams now should be in control of the recruitment process. They should be in control of the recruitment brand. An agency should really look to work as an extension of that team. And I think that's where the problems lie. In the past, agencies have had control of the recruitment process, they've had control of the database, and they have been the ones that have said, this is the right person to hire. And now we have a situation where in-house teams want to wrestle control back, and that they are in charge. And so that is where there is a conflict. And I think agencies that are going to thrive and survive in the future are the ones that are going to actually act as an extension of the in-house team. Because for me, an employer should only really use an agency for those really hard to find people, those people that aren't necessarily on LinkedIn or aren't necessarily on a database, and actually need to go out and find those people. They're not, it's not kind of about volume recruitment necessarily anymore. So I think
but it is
that,
though, and so, I don't think you can say that, because as an organisation, some organisations it is about volume recruitment, because you might need to go and recruit 400 ice cream operatives, so it is
Yes.
volume. I believe actually the change is, rather than saying you've got to reduce costs, which is obviously behind that, but you've got to improve the quality of the candidate. Now, where that candidate comes from, that's the prioritisation.
Yeah.
But I'm an ex-agency recruiter, yes it was 12, 13 years ago, but unless you get to know a company and become that extension, then you will constantly get that battle, because the agency recruiter can't become an extension if the in-house recruiter doesn't give them time of day.
The agency recruiter never was, and Alistair made a comment about agency recruiters used to own the process. I'm not sure they did, because they were invariably one of several agencies.
Yeah, true.
They're all pitching candidates in. So, and they had little regard for the reputation of the company or the brand or any other thing. It was just...
Well, I think whereas before, the employer, if they had a recruitment requirement, they used to go out to their PSL and the PSL would deal with the recruitment. Whereas now, the first port of call, if there's a recruitment requirement, the first port of call is the in-house team and their own database. They should only be going out to an agency when all of those channels have been exhausted.
Well, Charu brought up a good point about how it's not so much about the cost issue, although that is a factor, but it's about the quality factor. Do you think agencies want to work that hard?
The good ones do.
The good ones do, yeah.
Not on contingency, they don't know.
But then a small, agile, like two of my best friends own recruitment firms. When I went in-house, they opened their own firms. And they will not partner and work with big corporates because their PSLs are at such a low rate. They don't have contact with the hiring manager. And, as a recruiter, when I'm doing it now or doing that past, what I love the most is talking to the business. If you don't allow a recruiter to talk to the business, they're going to go, well, I'm not an order shuffler. So I don't think it's about agency not wanting...
suffers, ultimately.
Yes, it's not about agency not wanting to work hard. I genuinely believe, I think in-house functions almost don't see the value because some agencies aren't providing the value, and that's the fact.
So is it a selling problem or a buying problem?
It's a bit of both, but if I'm getting a shortlist for an agency that I know has taken 10 minutes just to get from LinkedIn, then that's very hard to sell to the business. But if I can, and I don't necessarily think it's about, and again I know these are some businesses' ethos, exhausting every single avenue and then going out to an agency, because the agency is not God. If you can't find the person, it's my old boss, my first boss in agency today. Is it, you're not paying enough money? Does the location suck, or does that person not exist? So you can't then give the problem child to the agency. I think it's about prioritisation, and then that comes down to workforce planning, which I don't want to talk about because it's so boring.
Well, let's go with you, Alistair, for a minute. You have a business dedicated to training in-house recruiters.
Yeah.
What are you training them to do?
Well, to be honest, a lot of it is the basics. So in my experience with some of the bigger clients that we're working with, in-house teams can be a sort of an amalgamation of HR people who have kind of fallen into recruitment for one reason or another, or their ex-agency who've come into the business. And again, there is a culture conflict there, so that the HR people are very good on process, whereas they won't necessarily pick up the phone and approach candidates, whereas the ex-agency people will be hopeless on process, but actually will be the people on the phone and actually going out and selling the business. But they'll be selling the business a lot of the time with their old ex-agency culture on their back, so that it's all about transaction process. So we're trying to help companies develop a consistent way in which in-house recruiters approach the candidates, and I think for me that is the key. So that's mainly it. I mean, obviously there's the whole social media thing as well, but one of my things at the moment is actually, because of social media, recruiters, especially in-house, will hide behind social media, and they won't make telephone calls, and they'll hide behind in-mails and Twitter and all of those good things. And actually it comes back to the good old-fashioned basics that, Mitch, you and I, we all knew. It's actually, you only truly engage a candidate when you've actually spoken to the candidate, and it's really getting in-house teams into that process where they actually pick up the phone and they speak to candidates, but they speak to them in the way that the organisation wants them to speak to them. So I think that is the key.
But I think, I really absolutely agree with what you've said, but I do believe it's also down to the VPs of resourcing and talent, because that's great training. I'm sure you go in and do 3-4 days worth of training, but until in-house recruiters are, I suppose, getting their salary and performance management on KPIs like time to hire, on filling a role so there's no noise in the business, on more stakeholder management, which is really important when you're in-house, as opposed to engaging, talking, then you're always going to have this sort of very sort of schizophrenic attitude to recruitment. So I think everything you've said is, if you went to talk to every head of resourcing, they would say exactly the same thing, buy into everything you said, Alistair. But if you're then giving your recruitment team 50 reps to manage, when on earth they're going to get time to actually do all that fabulous engagement? And I was sitting in a track this morning that was being talked about community management, And it came up then. I mean, it all sounds fabulous, but your business is not going to go, that's great, I know you haven't filled those 50 recs because you've built a fantastic community. It's just going to go, whatever, that doesn't make any sense.
Let me get in a questionnaire to you, Mitch. You've heard what Alistair has to say about training the in-house people. Do you think agency people get that better than the in-house people about actually having to talk with people?
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah, it's their lifeblood and they have to. But they don't talk to candidates in as much depth as they need to, because generally all they're establishing is, are they potentially available? Does the job fit? Does it match kind of financially, geographically, logistically? And if the answer is yes, there's no meaningful assessment going on. It's just, okay, I'll get back to you, and let's race back to the client and deliver this candidate before someone else does. Nobody benefits from that.
That's really interesting, actually, because actually one of the keys of some of the training that we do is all about trying to get in-house recruiters away from this transactional conversation, so that you know agency people traditionally they speak to someone, they're either right or they're wrong, and it's move on to the next person. Where actually I think for in-house it's much more about having a conversation with a person, finding out whether they're right or wrong, and if they are wrong, okay, but you still have a relationship with those people, and you still talk about who else is good in the business that they work with, who's winning the projects, and then all of that information that they gather from that conversation, they then resell into the business.
Yes.
And it comes back to what you were saying,
They have more motivation because they've got a static client with lots of different departments. The agency recruiter doesn't have that.
Yeah.
So people are picked up and dropped like hot potatoes, many times a day.
It comes back to what you're saying in terms of, again, one of the courses we do is managing the internal client, because as you say, I think the internal recruitment teams have huge problems with their reputation within the business, and they can only break that bad reputation by understanding the sector, by understanding that if a line manager comes to them and say we need someone on 40k, they can say, look, I've spoken to 25 people of the same type of skills and they're all being paid 50k. And it's about pushing back to the internal client and positioning themselves as consultants. And I suppose my argument is that they can only really gain that knowledge by talking to people. You know, they can pick up tidbits on blogs and social media, etc., but it's actually getting people to talk to each other. And I think for me that's a huge issue at the moment. We seem to be hiding behind the internet, and I want us to be able to really start talking to people again.
Agreed.
One of the things that seems to be a theme here is, talking about the right people, the right skills.
Yeah.
Sometimes it seems as though the concept of potential is getting lost a little bit. Trying to fit something into, this square peg.
Everybody wants somebody who's done the same job before for a competitor company or a similar type of business, and lots of people are making sideways moves.
Yeah.
And that's great when somebody needs to leave a job because their boss is getting on their nerves, or because they've just missed a pay rise or missed a promotion, and so they move sideways, hoping that it'll get better in that other company. But invariably it doesn't. And one or two moves later, that person's career has kind of hit a dead end because all they've done is the same job for 7 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the issues with in-house is that they'll get a job description from the internal client.
If they're lucky.
Yeah, if they're lucky. And they'll try and, and they'll go away and they'll try and fit that job description exactly. So again, one of the things that we try and encourage people to do is actually you have to go back to the line manager and say, which projects are they working on? Who are they working with? So actually to try and move away from the job description and actually...
But the problem with hiring managers is they hate recruitment.
Yeah.
And
they're risk averse.
It's like making sausages. They'd rather not see it happen.
Yeah. And in some ways should they though, because it's that magic behind the scenery should happen noiselessly. All the stuff that you were talking about, I did when I was an agency recruiter, because you have to challenge and so on. But some line managers, they're really risk averse. When you talk about potential, they're using a 45-minute interview. How on earth do you judge someone's potential from that? They just want to do a tick box. Yes, he's doing it at Reckitt, so therefore he can do it at Unilever. And doesn't necessarily want to do that stretch.
It was the same
doesn't have the capacity.
Yeah, it was the same when I was at Biscuits, same thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up. We could take this out all afternoon.
Talk all day.
We could. But I want to ask you each one final question. I'll start with you, Mitch. For in-house and agency recruiters to have the best possible outcome of their work together, what's the one thing you would urge?
What needs to happen?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a hell of a question. If I had to pick just one thing, I would urge in-house recruiters to stop expecting agency recruiters to do a job as well as they do it on a contingency basis. So in other words, pay them up front, make them own the job,
Brilliant.
regardless of the salary level.
Alistair.
I think what has to happen is that for the easy to fill, so people are out there on a database, that should be done by the in-house recruiters, and that they should partner with agencies who understand the business, who can find those hard to find people and actually pay them a proper rate. So rather than driving the agencies down and expecting a half rate service, actually they only use agencies for those hard to find people, and they pay them a really good rate that they're motivated to go out and do a really good job for them. So I think it's all about the relationship.
Charu.
I think what can improve the agency relationship and the in-house recruiter relationship is, I just remembering when someone moves jobs, it's the most important, or probably one of the three most important things of their lives. And we can lose sight of that in the social media, we can lose sight of that in workforce planning, we can lose sight of that in retained or contingency. But I'm a job hunter, all four of us are job hunters at one point.
Experience.
It's an awful experience if someone doesn't come back to you, whether that's in-house or agency, it's irrelevant. So I just think it's such a glib term, candidate experience, but it truly is. When an agency recruiter rings you up and then says, got a great job for you, you don't hear back, or if an in-house recruiter does the same, it's irrelevant what their title says. It still hurts, and it's really a horrible experience. So keeping that in the forefront, I would say.
Great. I'd like to thank Mitch Sullivan, Alistair Cartwright, and Charu Malhotra for a stimulating discussion this afternoon. I'm DeeDee Doke, editor of Recruiter Magazine and Recruiter.co.uk. Thanks for being with us. See you next session. Welcome to this live stream session from True London at the City Hotel here in East London. For this panel, we're going to be talking about that all-important subject of communities, one of the very hot topics today. I'm going to start with the introductions from my right. We have Amanda Ashworth of Excelsior Partnership, who's been working on building a talent pool community. Is that the right way to put that there? Next to me on my left is Peter Gold of Hire Strategy, and to my far left, Lisa Scales of TribePad. Communities is a hot topic, and yet it's also sort of a controversial topic. I'm going to start with you, Amanda. How important is the community to recruitment today, the concept of community?
For us, recruiting within marketing and digital, it's paramount that obviously that we're able to, with our community, find passive candidates that aren't necessarily on job boards or wanting to communicate with us via social networks. So it's very much, it's secondary to our database, but it's key.
Okay. Peter.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working as a marketeer for the last 12 months or so, and I think where communities work is that as a marketeer you're looking for information. So you're looking for information first on how you do your job better, and that brings you together as a community, and then obviously from a recruitment point of view it goes from there really.
Lisa.
I suppose my perspective on it is from a corporate organisational point of view, so rather than third party or rather than from a marketing point of view. So my sort of thought about it is about creating a community for attracting passive knowledge workers as opposed to high volume, maybe lower skilled workers, and how you serve content to people and attract them as a passive candidate, because these people have got their heads down, they're not particularly interested in moving. How do you as a business show that you're a knowledge leader and a thought leader in that particular skill set? And that's with, bringing somebody into an environment where you can then start serving them with content that's applicable to their, not necessarily even their jobs. And I would argue with sort of people earlier about actually I wouldn't even necessarily have jobs within that sort of environment. It's all about the content and about showing yourself as a brand, of knowing about this sort of stuff.
People are very busy. Everyone belongs to a lot of LinkedIn groups. How do you set yourself apart as a community? How do you get them to read this all-important content and to engage? I'm going to start with you.
I think one of the things that came out of earlier's topic was actually the world doesn't begin and end with LinkedIn, that a community can come in any form. So whether it's online or offline, you can build a community, and you build that community where the people that you want are. So for us, we do events, so a lot of it is offline, but a lot of it is via, say, places like Twitter and also Google+.
I think that's very exciting to hear somebody actually talk about an offline community, because for the last few years it's been so much about building these online communities. Do you think we're going back to a resurgence in actually meeting people? And
I don't think we've necessarily gone away from that. I think that all the press has been around online, but all these offline meetings still happen. And I think this whole thing about the passive job seeker is that, in its own right, they're passive, they're not looking for a job, they're trying to